All right, so today we're going to look at section 4.4, which talks about graphing with x and y intercepts. In order to do that, we are first going to have to figure out how to find an x and y intercept. So we have a little bit of vocab up at the top. First one talks about an x-intercept. So it's going to be the point where the line crosses our x-axis. Now, remember, when we have a coordinate plane, okay, which is what we've been talking about for the past few days, okay, you have x goes left and right, y goes up and down. Our x-intercept, okay, so the x-intercept is going to be when the graph crosses this line right there. Okay, so it's when it crosses the line that is going left or right. Okay, so you can find it by looking at a graph just when it crosses that line. The other way would be from an equation. Okay, so to find the x-intercept, what we're going to do is plug in 0 for y. Okay, so y has to equal 0 for an x-intercept. Okay, kind of the opposite of what you think. All right, x-intercept, y equals 0. On the other hand, the y-intercept is going to be where a line crosses the y-axis. Got our xy plane. And now for the y-intercept, we're looking, okay, when does it cross that line that is going up and down? In order to find it from an equation, we are going to plug in 0 for x. X always equals 0 for the y-intercept. All right, so jumping right into the examples. Example 1, they want us to find the x-intercept of x minus 1 equals 6. I'm going to go ahead and underline what they want me to find. They want us to find the x-intercept. We know when I am looking for the x-intercept, y is always going to equal 0. Dead giveaway. As soon as you see x-intercept, y equals 0. I'm going to go ahead and plug in 0 for y. And we're left with x minus 0 equals 6. Go through and solve that. It's going to end up being x equals 6. So our x-intercept, now I get in the habit of writing this as an ordered pair. Our x-intercept is going to be 6, 0. Remember, when we're writing ordered pairs, the x always comes first, y comes second. So that'd be my x-intercept for example 1. Example 2, they want us to find the y-intercept. Go ahead, underline what we want. We want the y-intercept. As soon as I see that, in my mind, I'm thinking right away, x has to equal 0. Okay? Now that I know x equals 0, I go ahead and plug it in. We have negative 2 times 0 plus y equals negative 4. Negative 2 times 0 is 0. And we are just left with y equaling negative 4. So that would be my y-intercept. Once again, get in the habit of writing as an ordered pair. So our ordered pair, we know that for a y-intercept, x is 0. And then we're just going to write the y value down at the end. So our y-intercept for example 2 would be 0, negative 4. Example 3, they ask us to find both the x and the y-intercept. So doing that, I'm going to do the x-intercept over here first on the left. For an x-intercept, we know y has to equal 0. So from my equation, I'm going to have 4x minus 2 times 0 equals 8. 4x equals 8. X is going to equal 2. Okay, so our x-intercept is going to be 2, 0. That would be our x-intercept. Y-intercept, I'm going to go ahead and do in pink. Right away when I see y-intercept, I'm thinking x equals 0. So I go to my equation, plug in 0 for x. 4 times 0 minus 2 times y equals 8. Negative 2y equals 8. Y equals negative 4. And then like I said before, we want to write these as ordered pairs. So my x was 0, y is negative 4. Okay, there we go. Now, the reason we're talking about x and y intercepts today is because it's extremely easy to graph lines if you know the x and the y intercept. In order to graph a line, technically you only need 2 points. Okay, by definition, a line is the shortest distance between 2 points. Okay, so I just need the 2 points. We're going to connect them with a line, arrows through. And that leads us right into example 4. So on example 4, they want us to graph the equation 2x plus y equals 8, and they want us to use intercepts only. So first step, x-intercept. We know y has to equal 0. Go ahead, substitute that in. 2x plus 0 equals 8. 2x equals 8. Divide each side by 2. X is going to be 4, which gives us an x-intercept of 4, 0. Whenever you get, make that a better comma, whenever you get points, go ahead and put them on your graph. Okay? So if I have 4, 0, starting from the origin, I'm going to go right 4, and I'm not going up or down. So there's my x-intercept right there. Now that I have the x-intercept, I'm going to go ahead and find the y-intercept. Y-intercept, we're going to have x equals 0, substitute it in, end up with y equals 8. So we have an ordered pair for my y-intercept of 0, 8. 0 tells me not to go left or right. I'm just going up to 8. So we have our 2 points. And like I said, in order to graph a line, you really only need 2 points. So I'm going to take those 2 points right there. I'm going to connect them to the best of my ability with a straight line. And then like we've been saying with graphs, we need to have arrows on the end because there are infinite solutions to this equation. Okay, you could pick any x value in there and we will find a y value that works out. All right, so there's the first page, examples 1 through 4. Example 5, they want us to graph again using x and y intercepts. For this one, you got to do a little more work because the x's and y's aren't on the same side. But we've done this a bunch this year, so I have faith in you. For the x-intercept, go ahead, plug in 0 for y. Okay, as soon as I see x-intercept, I'm thinking y equals 0. Plugging in 0 for y, we're going to have 0 equals 4 minus 2x. And this takes us back to September, okay, when we were solving two-step equations. To solve this, I minus 4 from each side. So negative 4 equals negative 2x. Divide by negative 2. And we get x equaling 2. So there's our first x-intercept, 2, 0. Okay. Second one, we want the y-intercept. So y in. Right away, x equals 0. So substituting x equals 0, I'm left with y equals 4 minus 2 times 0. We are going to get y equals 4. So our point there would be 0, 4. Stay in the middle. Go up 4. Just like we did on the previous one, okay, you got your 2 points. We can now go ahead and connect them with a straight line. To the best of our ability. So that looks pretty darn straight to me. Arrows on the end because it goes on for forever. Now, when we get to example 6, they're asking you a little bit of a conceptual question. Okay, you want to know how many intercepts do you think a horizontal line will have? Give an example to support your answer and use the graph if necessary. So remember, when we see horizontal line, it's a line that's going left and right. Okay, it's like the horizon. All right. So if I were to graph this, okay, for example, I'm going to do this in red up here. If I were to graph a horizontal line, right there I have y equals 8. Okay. Looking at that graph there, it only crosses an axis one time. Okay, so I'm going to say it has one intercept, and that happens to be a y-intercept. Okay, there's no x-intercept because it doesn't cross the x-axis. The weird one that comes into play would be if we have y equals 0, because we're just going down the x-axis the whole time, but we're not going to worry about that in here. Okay, for B, I'm going to do that in green. They ask about a vertical line. So if I have a vertical line, those are the ones going up and down. I'm going to draw one in at, let's say, x equals negative 2. That's not the best line, but it's early. Okay, looking at that, that line never crosses the y-axis, so I don't have a y-intercept. It only crosses the x-intercept once. So I'm going to say we have one intercept, and it happens to be an x-intercept. Okay, last one, example 7. Looking from the graph, we want to be able to identify both the x and y intercepts. So remember, x This is where it crosses the x-axis, okay? So I'm going to do the x in green. I look at my x-axis right here. It crosses at that point right there. So my x-intercept would be -2, 0. For the y-intercept, I'm going to go ahead and do it in red. Our y-axis goes up and down. So now where do we cross it? We cross right there, which would give us a y-intercept of 0, 2. All right, so that's section 4.4, graphing x and y intercepts. We're going to do some tries after this to make sure that we're on the same page.